안녕하세요. 키민코리 박키미입니다. Hi, this is Kimi Park from Kiminkory, and today I am talking to you about Sogang. I just started to study at Sogang University. It has now been a couple weeks and I thought I would give you a little feedback about how it's been going so far. I'm not a beginner when it comes to the Korean language. I have been studying for 3.5 years at the Sogang Institute. I started there as a beginner from level 1 and I did up to level 8, which is the final level, which is high intermediate. And I made a whole video about it if you're interested. And I also studied 2 semesters at Yonsei University, one in the regular program level 3 and then one in the evening program level 7, which would be the first half of level 4 in terms of regular program. So really I'm a high intermediate speaker. However, both at the Sogang Institute and Yonsei University, speaking is not really emphasized, and speaking is definitely my weak point. So I don't speak so well. I'm usually quite uncomfortable speaking. And when I speak, I usually don't really finish my sentences. Like, I sort of start, and then if the other person sort of understand me, I just kind of like let them guess. This is actually why Sogang was recommended to me by a teacher I had at the Sejong Institute, because Sogang is well known for focusing primarily on speaking. So when I had a look at the different level at Sogang, there is officially 7 levels. So level 1 is complete beginner, level 2 is high beginner, level 3 is low intermediate, level 4 is high intermediate, level 5 is low advanced, level 6 is high advanced, and there is another level which doesn't have a book, which is level 7, which is specialized advanced level. So before the placement test, I kind of wanted to have a look at what are the level like at Sogang, because from one Korean school to another, the programs are different, contents are different. So what I did was looking for the table of content of each book, because usually this is available on the websites that are selling the books. This is the book I currently have. You can just find these types of pages in the previews of the books. So in this, they usually say like the general topic, like it's going to be weather, health, that kind of thing, which doesn't matter too much to me, at least. What matters to me is the grammar. Which grammar point are we going to be studying during this level? Because just by looking at this, I can see, oh, is it something that I know already, or is it something that I don't know at all? I can sort of evaluate the level without having to look at the actual book, because you can't find the book online, right? Actually, I even went to Kyobo, which is a really big bookstore, to look at the different books to evaluate the levels, because I was kind of like, then should I do level 4 or should I do level 5? Because technically I already passed the exam of being high advanced, but I was also very worried that my speaking level would be enough to be able to be in level 5. But when I was there, the books were actually wrapped up, so you can actually look at them. But the other thing that I did on top of looking at the table of content was listening to the audio, because listening to the audio is usually the dialogues and the tutki, because usually you can find the audio on download for free from the website of the maker of the book, because it gives you an idea of the level of difficulty of the dialogues and of the tutki exercise, the listening exercises. I downloaded level 3, level 4, level 5 to have a bit of a look. Yeah, and overall I thought level 4 would be pretty good for me. So when it was the actual day of the placement test, the first thing that you have to do is the writing test. So at Sogang, on the day, they give you 3 topics to write about, and you can choose one. So there's one for beginner level, one for intermediate level, and one for advanced level. Because I thought level 4 is probably the most appropriate for me, I picked the intermediate level writing, which was about describing a friend. The test was online, so you just had to write it, take a picture, and send it back. So this was my page. So it was not very long. I was not too sure about what to write. So a little tip: if you really want to be put into a specific level, for example, you are in between level 3 and level 4, but you really want to do level 4, have a look using the table of content of what they studied in level 3 and use these grammar points in your writing, because by doing this you can already show like, oh look, I already know all these grammar points, I don't need to go in level 3, put me into level 4. And then there was the speaking part of the placement test. So it was an interview with the teacher. It was also online, it was on Zoom. It's just very brief, you know, it's like 5-10 minutes maybe. So the teacher arrives, she's like, okay, can you introduce yourself? The teacher might bounce back on whatever you're saying. So for example, I spoke about my family here in Korea, so she sort of asked me a few questions about that I had to answer. And I sort of already know your level a little bit, if you have specified already where you studied and up to which level, like I did, for example. So she also asked me a few questions about studying at Sejong, etc. And then there's some random question. I mean, maybe they're not random. I was thinking maybe they're from level 3, or maybe they ask the same question to all the students. I don't really know, but there's a couple of just random questions that you're like, okay, you know, let's talk about that, like a place you've been, or I was a little bit taken aback with that question of do you have an experience of having lost something? And I was like, lost something? Like lost anything? Like anything at all? And she was like, yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay. And I told this story of that one time I lost my phone and retraced all my steps in all the shops I had been previously. I ended up finding it, so yeah. I didn't really know what to say. At the end of the day, what you're talking about is not super important. They're just trying to evaluate your speaking capabilities. So she was like, okay, so you're definitely an intermediate. Do you want to go back on the basis at level 3 and be, you know, really chill about it, or do you want to do level 4? To me, it was interesting to see that she did not propose to me to go straight to level 5. So I was like, okay, even though I have graduated already of high intermediate in the Sejong Institute, she does not think I have this level currently, which makes sense because as I said, I'm not really comfortable with speaking. So yeah, I was like, yeah, level 4 sounds great. She was like, okay. And that was it. So this is how the placement tests work. And then it was the first day of class. I did not really know what to expect, but on the first day, surprisingly, we did not introduce ourselves. Like, we just wrote our name on a paper, but there was no big introduction of like, my name is, and I come from, and etc. Because the 자기소개, so self-introduction, was the topic of the chapter 1 of the level 4. So we don't really get started on the book on the first day. Maybe because they assume people don't have it yet. You can buy the book on campus on the first day of class because they announce in which level you are on orientation day, which is only 1 or 2 days before the first day of class. In my case, I had bought the book in advance because I already spoke with the teacher, so we agreed on that, so she's not gonna randomly put me in level 3 or level 5, you know. And when I say the book, you actually have 3 books. There is the main book, there is the workbook, and there is your Bible. This is because this little book has all the vocab list that you have to learn, all the grammar points that you're going to study, some extra grammar point that you are not studying per se at this level but might be useful. It's called 탐구 문법. So just some extra grammar points that you might have studied in other levels that you're not going to study specifically in this level, but just that might be useful to have. It's a very short reminder of what these are about. And then you have the answers of the workbook. These you need to buy. You can buy as a bundle. So these are the book for 4A, which is the first half of the term. And then you have it all again in 4B. So you have again the workbook, the book, and the Bible for the second half of the term. And then on the first day of class, you have to go pick up the Sugi. The Sugi is for writing. It's all the writing exercises, which has once more some words, some extra sentence structure, and the writing. This they give it for free on the first day of class. You just have to go and pick it up. This one is both for 4A and 4B, so this is for your full term. And then what we do on the first day is the 복습 of the previous level. So because we were in level 4, we did a quick review of the grammar and of the main vocabulary that they learned in level 3. And this was already very interesting for me because I had personally reviewed level 3 grammar in advance by looking at the table of content and relisting them, checking if I was sure I knew them all. But the way it was done was interesting because the teacher was like, go in pair and you have to explain the word to the other from the list. So I was like, what? And this is one of the great things at Sogang University, they make you speak. So one of the way that they are trying to make you practice your speaking as well as remembering the words is that you have to explain said word to a partner. So she gave us a list of words, right? And some expressions as well. And we would have to explain it to each other. You would have to just improvise sort of a definition. So it's playing charade, really. So for example, I'm gonna pick a word from the list randomly. Okay, that one. And I would say to my partner, 많은 사람 앞에서 설명하는 거. 보통 PPT도 사용할 수 있고 you're trying to think of something to say, but the other person in front of you has to guess, and they could be like, 발표? And you can be, 정답! And then it's their turn to explain something to you. Which, to be honest, it's a really good way of practicing speaking. And I was quite surprised that from the beginning on, as soon as the teacher said it, like everybody turned and then started explaining something. But the thing is that more than half of the student in my class at least had started studying at Sogang from level 1 or level 2 already. So they have been here for several months and they were completely used to the way it works, but also the fact that they would have to speak straight away. Whereas at Yonsei or at Sejong, a lot of times when people had to start doing exercises with partners, everybody's kind of like, don't want to start, feeling shy, you know. So that was the first thing I would say that I noticed about Sogang, is that yes, indeed, even the people who literally have been studying Korean only since 3 terms are fairly comfortable just studying and speak in Korean, even though it's not accurate, right? It doesn't need to be right, they just need to make themselves understood, and this is the whole point of speaking, right? It's communication. It made me feel great about the course from the start. I was like, okay, this is result. This is what I want to do. I want to be able to get over my fear of speaking Korean because I feel too shy or not good enough to be able to speak, right? That was the first thing. And then the second thing is that we just did some exercises with 1 sentence per grammar point. Yeah, and then the teacher was explaining the general rules, the kind of thing that we already heard at orientation, but then explained in Korean, such as, you know, attendance and how the exam's gonna work. This is another point. So you have midterm after 4 chapters, let's put it this way. After 4 chapters you just have a quiz, so it's like a very short mini exam about the content of the first 4 chapters. And after you have the midterms, after finishing the whole of 4A, and then after you move on to 4B, and you have, once again, after the first 4 chapters, you have the quiz, which is the mini exam, and then you have the final exams at the end of 4B. So there is 8 chapters and 8 chapters, so 16 in total. And then from the day after we get started on the content, it takes 2 days to do 1 chapter. So we do 2 days, 1 chapter, 2 days, the next chapter, and then 1 day of revision of the whole 2 chapters. So you do chapter 1, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 2, revision of chapter 1 and chapter 2. Then chapter 3, 4, revision of chapter 3 and 4. So I find that they don't give so much homework. I was really happy about that, because at Yonsei they gave us so much homework. But like any other intensive program, the big difficulty is the amount of vocabulary that we have. Actually, that was one thing that I was really surprised about, is that there is not so much grammar at Sogang. Definitely so much less than at Yonsei. But in terms of vocabulary, this is vocabulary for chapter 1, for example. So you have this 3 pages, alright? But it can be longer. Chapter 8, for example, has 3.5 pages long of vocabulary. Here it's divided by like Tadgiwan, Malagiwan. So they're divided by which sort of group it goes. Some vocabulary have little stars, and I was a little bit confused about that. I've noticed that the one that have little stars here are the same that you find in the last page of each chapter. So I assume that this is the vocabulary you have to learn. And it's true, to an extent. But what about the rest? The one that don't have stars? I thought they were just here for your information. Ha. No. So another student told me that there are the words that you are already supposed to know because you have studied them in the previous level of Sogang, which was not my case. There was a lot of them that I didn't know. Also, there's a lot of words that people don't remember. There's a lot of it. Honestly, the new words per chapter has an average of 60 per chapter at level 4. It's more obviously than in the other levels. It's quite a lot, and there's also these other ones that you kind of like are supposed to know already. So I feel quite overwhelmed with the amount of vocabulary I have to catch up on and learn for going forward. But yeah, flashcards are my best friends. So not so much homework, but a lot of vocabulary. Basically, how it works with the homework, you have to learn your vocabulary in advance, if possible. This is called 예습. Then you have the seogi. So there is 4 of them that are going to be compulsory and graded. So the teacher will let you know which one they are, and you usually have a week to write them from the moment the teacher gives them to you. And otherwise, they just sort of expect you to study, but they don't really give you so much extra homework, except maybe this one thing to do in advance in preparation of the class. But otherwise, they just kind of like let you deal with yourself. They just gave us some papers that we do the exercises on. You can also write it and give it back to us, or just do it by yourself without us correcting it, or you can just not do it if you don't want to. Usually we sort of at least start them in class. And in terms of the workbook, they tell us to do the workbook, but we also have to check it ourselves because the answers are in this one. So if you don't do it, it's kind of like up to you. So the other thing that really surprised me is that there's no dialogue to start with. I mean, it's not exactly true, because we do start with the dialogue, but at Yonsei, at Sogang, the first thing you start on a new chapter, you start with the dialogue, right? And then you read through dialogue, trying to understand it, etc. Whereas, so here, if you start a new chapter, there's no dialogue, but there is. Actually, so you don't have a dialogue written here, but the first thing that we do in class is a dialogue still that we have to listen. This is straight away a tutki exercise, and the dialogue's actually written here at the end. They are pretty long. A lot of the students that came from the other level were like, oh my god, the dialogues are so long. Because at level 3, and I've borrowed this book from one of my classmates to be able to show you, it's done quite differently where, you know, when you start, you just have, well, you have a grammar point at the beginning, but you pretty much have a dialogue, 2 dialogues actually, from the beginning, and they're very short dialogues. They also have dialogues as tutki, right, where they have the script at the end, and these are also long, but we don't go through short dialogues like in level 3. We go straight to longer ones. To me that was not so much of a surprise, but yeah, I guess they did say that from level 3 to level 4 the way it's organized, the way it's done is quite different. And then for the readings, we have 2 per chapter. This is an example of a reading, so you have a sort of like a shorter reading, right? And then the second reading is a much longer one. I didn't find them that long, really, but then all of the other students were like, oh my god, the readings are like so long, they're so hard. So I can see that there is indeed quite a gap between level 3 and level 4, which to me, I just came at level 4, so I didn't really care. Our teacher said that at level 4, where a lot of people fail at the exam, is actually the reading, which I was a little bit surprised by, because I didn't find that the readings was so difficult. In my case, right? In my case. But there's definitely a shift from level 3 to level 4. In level 3 they had to learn all the mini dialogues by heart. The other student told me, because as part of the exam there would be one line missing from the dialogue and they would have to like write it down as exactly as it was. This might be interesting for you to know, but it doesn't concern me because we can't learn the entire long dialogue at level 4. I don't find the content of the book to be particularly difficult. Loads of new vocabulary, this is the main point, but grammatically speaking it's not super high. So I mean, some of the grammar points are new to me, some of them I already know them. Also, we're gonna have to do a presentation from level 4, which was not the case in level 3. We have 2 presentations to do, one that is not graded, which is a self-introduction of 3 minutes, and then one that is graded, which is a sort of 7 to 10 minutes presentation about a topic of a choice. So it has been a couple weeks now. The thing that I struggle with, I would say, is that I've missed 2 chapters because of something good. Because I am one of the winners of the K-Influence Academy 2022, which was a program run by the government to promote Korean culture through YouTube videos, and it was a 6-month program, and the 8 winners out of almost 2,000 applicants won a trip to Korea. Yay! But I'm already in Korea. I mean, I was still happy. I was still very happy. The trip itself was great, and it was 1 week. It was at the same time as chapter 2 and chapter 3, and the book. So I missed 2 chapters, so I feel a little bit stressed now. I worked a lot to catch up on those, and then we did the quiz, which the first 4 chapters, right? And I feel like I've done well, so it's not too bad, but it gave me a lot of extra stress. Anyway, so that was just a very personal issue. I would say that my main issue is that we are only 2 people out of a class of 16 to have not started in the previous levels. It is a lot less sociable in level 4 than it is in the other levels, because most people in my class have been here for a long time. Some people have been living in Korea for several years. Most people have done other terms with Sogang, because if you start at sort of level 1 or 2, you're a beginner. Often you just arrived in Korea and you just want to make friends, so it's a lot easier for people to socialize. Whereas I find that at my level, most people are already established here in Korea. They have their friends. In the break, they go in the hallway to meet their friends from the previous terms. Even though people in my class are very nice, right? And I've asked a couple times to, hey, do you want to go for lunch, to the person next to me? And I have been for lunch with a few of them, but it's not a thing that everybody's looking for friends. So I feel a little bit like it's a bit of a shame that we don't mingle a little bit more in our class. But yeah, everybody already has their own life. It's not a struggle, but it was a thing where I was a bit like, it's a bit sad. So I'm gonna wrap up now. These were my first impressions after a couple of weeks here at Sogang University. I'm guessing that if you watch this video is because you are thinking of studying at Sogang, or you are gonna start studying at Sogang, in which case, fighting! If this video was useful to you, please let me know by giving me a thumbs up. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. I wish you a lovely day.